Welcome back, guys. I am so excited for today's episode. I have Dori with me. You probably know her from Detoxing Dori online. Dori, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to just hear more about you, about your journey through conventional medicine and how you ended up where you are today. So, if you don't mind, just kind of walking us through your diagnosis and how you found your way out of conventional medicine.
Yeah, for sure. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2013, so 13 years ago. Actually, pretty close, almost to the day today.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so 13 years ago that I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I had just turned 28, just like a couple weeks prior, and my daughter had just turned 2. So it was obviously a shocking diagnosis. At the time, I didn't even know what a thyroid was or what it did or anything to do with cancer or anything like that. I actually thought that I was going through early menopause at that point because of my symptoms that I was experiencing, and I had a really horrible experience with postpartum depression leading up to this diagnosis, and I actually just started getting through that right before I was diagnosed with cancer. So it was a really rough few years. Um, and at the time, I was like, yeah, I'd love to go through menopause because I didn't want any more kids after that experience. So I was like, this is fine. and then, uh, and then I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was like, oh, this is not fine. Um, So, yeah, he told me that I had cancer. The doctor at the time, I didn't have my family doctor had left the our town, so we didn't have a replacement. It was just a new doctor every time I went in because they were just kind of there as like temporary fill-ins. So it was a complete stranger to me. I had never met the guy before. He looked like he was fresh out of med school too, like super young. I'll never forget what he looks like. It's a core memory. Um, And I actually felt really bad for him because I went in there and he had to tell this young woman that she has cancer. And I remember feeling like I could almost feel his uncomfort with the situation, his discomfort with the situation for me.
Yeah.
um, and then he had said some things that I was like, that's sort of kind of a weird thing to say to someone, like, oh, if I had to pick a cancer, it'd be this one because it's, the most curable and like things like that. I know he was just trying to make me feel better, obviously, but it was just interesting choices that were said. And I remember my first question was, do I need to do chemo? Because I don't want to lose my hair.
That's the first thought.
And yeah, right. And he was like, he said, no, like thyroid cancer doesn't typically involve chemotherapy, it doesn't really, respond well to that. So I was like, okay, well, at least there's that. And then I left, and I was definitely in shock for the rest of that day because I didn't really know what to do with that information. So I kind of just went about my day like nothing happened. Um, it wasn't until the next morning that it hit me that I was like, oh my God, I have cancer. Like this is wild. Um, and that day was really, really, really hard. Um, but there was something that came over me that made me realize that everything was going to be okay. And I just needed to ask questions, which is something I was never good at. So I honestly believe that cancer for me was a gift, because I had always been the quiet one who listened to the rules and never broke rules, and the good girl, the quiet girl, you know. I just did as I was told always in life, and I got by. Um, but then something wasn't sitting right with me with this diagnosis, and what they had told me my only options were And it just all felt really, really wrong. So I started doing my own research, which I know is dangerous. But
How dare you?
I know, right? How dare you take your health into your own hands? Um, and the information that I found was so incredibly mind blowing to me that there was no turning back. Like, I couldn't go back to where I started from. Ignorance was no longer bliss for me. Like, it was undeniable, basically, what I had learned. And then moving forward, I traveled down both paths. So it wasn't just like I did all this research on alternative medicine and didn't think about conventional at all. I went down both paths so that I could make an informed decision for myself, knowing all options that are available to you, whether they tell you it is or not, right? Just because those are the only options available in Western medicine doesn't mean they're the only options available to you everywhere. So I made sure I went and saw the specialists. I even went to the States to get more testing done. Like it wasn't a choice that I made overnight. It took me 6 weeks of deep, solid research into all options before I chose what was right for me.
Did you find that in Canada, is it harder to get treatment than in the States?
Canada is very slow. So I had my biopsy done in February and I wasn't diagnosed till June. Um, yeah, so it's crazy here what people wait for treatments, for diagnoses, for medications, for you name it. Most people here don't have family doctors. You go to the ER, you wait for hours upon hours to be seen by someone. Um, it's not, we're not in a good state here right now. The medical system's not good to begin with, unless you're in a crisis medical emergency, obviously. But on top of the lack of care, there's also so much other lacking here in Canada specifically.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard. So when you got to the States, so you got the testing done, and then what did your treatment look like? What did you figure out for yourself?
Well, for myself, so first, what they had offered me, and according to them was my only option, was to remove my entire thyroid, to have a thyroidectomy, then go on have radioactive iodine treatment, which is the protocol for thyroid cancer, and then be on hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my life. I was only 28 at the time, right? So I had asked lots of questions like, well, what does that look like for the rest of my life? Like, I'm not even 30. And they didn't ever have answers for me because I also asked things like a radioactive iodine. So you're literally injecting radiation into me. And as far as I've learned in my whole life leading up to this, radiation equals cancer, right? That's what we're taught. Radiation is bad, but you want to actually inject it into me. Um, and everything they were telling me just didn't make logical sense, right? Like they told me nothing you did caused this, so there's nothing you can do to reverse it. And I was like, okay, but my body still grew this, so I allowed it to happen within myself somehow. Doesn't that logically mean I can do the opposite also and have my body heal it? Logically, right? If I can do one thing, I should be able to do the other. But yeah, they never had answers for me and told me I had some pretty horrible experiences with medical doctors, unfortunately, throughout that. But what I had turned to was everything that I found online or spoken to other people, which were very few back then. Um, and I started implementing what I could do here in my present state because I couldn't travel to a different country to spend tens of thousands of dollars on treatments. I had a 2-year-old. I had a budget. Like, there was only so much I could do. So I chose doing the things that I could do. And I did it overnight, basically, which I don't necessarily recommend to most people because it can be really hard on your system to do that. But back then I was like, I'm all in. I'm not going to mess around with this. So literally overnight, I changed my entire lifestyle, everything. Hmm.
So, what did that look like for you?
Well, I got a water filter. So one of the first things we did, because we were on town water leading up to that, so got a water filter that had like a little double tap. One side did reverse osmosis water, and the other side did alkalized water. So I drink that all day. I started juicing fresh juices every single day, all day. I changed my diet to a fully plant-based diet at that time, which again is not what I would do now. All these things is just what I did then that I thought was the right thing to do. And I was basically keto but vegan, which is very hard to do. It was an extremely restrictive diet, like extremely. So it was very, very challenging. I changed all of my cleaning products, all of my self hygiene products, beauty products, because that's one of the major things that I learned that I didn't know at that time was how important everything is, not just your food, because I already understood the importance of food at that point. Considering how most people eat, I ate very well even then. Not as well as I do now, but still, considering how bad most people eat. And that's one of the reasons why it was also so surprising that I had cancer because I wasn't overweight, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I've always lived a healthy lifestyle. None of the cofactors that go along with that diagnosis were me. Um, and that's when I found German new medicine, which is an extraordinary concept. And it's based on the belief that your diagnosis means something from a metaphysical perspective. Um, and for thyroid cancer specifically, obviously, your thyroid's in your throat. That's where you speak, that's where your voice comes from, that sort of thing. Most people who've experienced thyroid cancer have been in controlling situations, are quiet. They're the ones who never voice their opinions or make any disturbances, that sort of thing. And that description fit me perfectly. Not the medical one for thyroid cancer, but the metaphysical one. And I was like, wow, okay. So that made sense for me. So I started implementing some of their ideologies into my life of like starting to speak your voice and using your voice and that sort of thing. That is still a challenge for me, but I'm working on it. And and I introduced a lot of different supplementations into my program, my protocol. I did detox baths every night. I ate broccoli sprouts. I ate apricot kernels. I did baking soda water. I did so many things for so long and it was so strict, but I did it and it worked. So the evidence speaks for itself in my case.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. So, what age were you when you found out that you had no cancer anymore?
28.
Oh, so it was the same
It
same
was
year.
9 months later that I was in remission. Hmm.
Wow. Wow. Did you ever go back to the same doctor in conventional medicine or anyone?
No, I didn't have any of the same doctors, what like family doctor wise. There was one specialist in Toronto that I had seen at a hospital. He was a thyroidectomist. So I knew full well going in that he was obviously going to say, you have to have thyroid surgery and we have to remove your whole thyroid. He was really rude the entire time I was there. Um, he had 2 student doctors with him, and there's a screen on the wall with like my information and tests and everything up there, and he spoke to them as if I wasn't even in the room, about me. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, could you, you know, relay that information to the patient here, please? Also in terms that I can understand, because at that point, medical lingo was new to me. I didn't really understand all of that medical jargon. And he spoke to me, and then I told him that I wasn't looking for surgery at this point. I did want his opinion, but I was looking towards more of the holistic medicine route. And he literally pointed and laughed at me and said, I know nothing about holistic medicine, but I know it doesn't work and you'll be back. And I just instantly burst into tears at that time. Now I would just be livid with him. But I wasn't as strong as I am now back then. And I ran out of his office bawling my eyes out. And I was with one of my girlfriends when that happened. And she's like, you know what? You will be back. And I was like, what? What? And she's like, you'll be back to show him and to prove him wrong. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. But I never went back. I don't remember his name or anything. I could probably track him down if I really wanted to, which would kind of maybe be fun for me, but I would love for him to see my ultrasounds now that prove that, I'm in remission through holistic medicine,
Yeah.
which he knows nothing about but has a very large opinion on. Um, but yeah, so it was after 2 months of my protocol that I created for myself, I had no symptoms. Like all my symptoms were gone. And then after 3 months, when I had a checkup, because at that time I was getting ultrasounds every 3 months just to make sure that things were, at least stable and not progressing, my tumor had already started shrinking. Um, and then after 9 months, I was declared in remission. And not once during that time did anybody ask me what I was doing. Nobody cared in the medical system. There was one ultrasound technician who I saw every time I went. It was the same ultrasound technician. We live in a really small town, so it's like one person. And at one point, she had asked me if I was on like a clinical trial, like medication trial basis thing, where they try medications out on you, because clearly whatever I was doing was working. And I told her, I was like, no, I'm actually doing my own thing. And I wasn't comfortable talking about what I was doing at that time with a lot of people because I got a lot of backlash. And that was it. She was the only person who ever inquired to any degree about what I was doing. Until much later when I met well, he's now retired, but I met another family doctor who um, did a lot of work in lifestyle medicine. And he was actually super keen on my story. And he met me I had a restaurant back then, and we started working together. And he was the first medical doctor that actually had massive amounts of respect for me, and me vice versa for him, because he practiced lifestyle medicine and he believed in food and nutrition. And he actually went to universities here in Canada and taught other doctors nutrition. And now he's retired and I'm sad, but that was, that was a good experience, at least for me.
Yeah, we need more doctors like that.
Hmm.
More doctors that don't make you scared of your body and scared of a
Hmm.
diagnosis. And that's incredible, though. That's so inspiring. It's just so nice to hear your story because it's like the backlash is everywhere for, and it shouldn't be backlash. It should be exciting. Like, oh, we can do something else too, or we can
Hmm.
incorporate something else, or we can try other things. It's almost as if, I don't know. I don't know why there's so much negativity in modern conventional medicine of this is it and this is how it's going to be, and you will probably die if you don't go with our program, basically, is how
Mm-hmm.
they're trained to make us feel. And it's so scary because,
It
yeah, I
is
don't
really
understand.
scary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally told me I would die before I reached 40 if I didn't do what they told me to do. And they said horrible things to me. They told me I was in denial, that I wasn't paying attention to myself. I didn't care about my family. I didn't want to see my kids grow up. Like, don't you want to see your daughter at her wedding? Like things like that. And I'm like, of course I do. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you even say that to a mother? You know, putting me in a place of fear to make a decision for my life that includes my children out of fear should be illegal. Like not you not telling me those things are illegal, which to me is just so backwards. There's zero support involved in it, unless, of course, you choose what they tell you to do. That's the only time they'll support you. And to me, that is just so disappointing.
Yeah. And it doesn't even feel like support. It just feels like, well, you're our customer now. Pay up.
Basically, right? Yeah. And when you have legitimate questions, they look at you like you're crazy. And when they don't have answers for you, they get mad. And it's just because you're not even putting them in their place, but it's just asking them questions that they should have answers to. You just gave me a death sentence, basically, and you don't have answers to my questions that aren't crazy questions at all. Like, you should know the answer if I start taking these hormone replacement therapy medications for the rest of my life. What does my life look like? What does that cause long term for someone who's starting them at the age of 28? You should know the answer to that. At least something, not, I don't know,
Or at
like,
least want to know, show interest in your individualized patient right in front of you.
right? Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, especially when you've never faced the medical system before that to any degree. And then you're faced with this type of treatment, and it's shocking. It really is. Like, it was an eye-opening experience for me to be a part of that world.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't imagine what you felt. Because going through it as a nurse, you know the system kind of.
Mhm.
Even then, it's still scary, but I couldn't imagine what patients are feeling like, and the betrayal, and lack of education that the system's giving. I just couldn't
Mhm.
imagine that feeling. I have a question for you. Were you vaccinated?
As a child, yeah, I was vaccinated as a child, just like your routine, whatever 80s babies, 90s kids got.
Okay.
Before that, before my diagnosis, I don't think I had had a vaccine since grade 7, probably. Like whenever we got, I think it was meningitis or something back then. Um, but there was something that to this day I think was part of my diagnosis, not just the metaphysical portion, but I had a lot of dental work done as a child, like a lot of oral surgeries. I had braces. I had my wisdom teeth removed just a few years prior to my diagnosis, also, which I think there's a connection there. But I had tons of dental x rays, and not once as a child did they ever put any sort of protection over my neck during those x rays. So I do believe that that played a major role in my diagnosis because I've never had thyroid issues. No one in my family has thyroid issues. Like there's been a few people in my family who've had cancer, but different kinds of cancer. So there was nothing added up to thyroid cancer in my life. So that's why they had no answers for me as to why it happened. They just told me I was unlucky. I was like, wow, that's some pretty bad luck there. Hmm.
And so since then, have you had any medical problems or any changes in your health?
Yeah, for sure. So I was vegan. What year did I stop being vegan? 2023. So 10 years. Over 10 years, I was vegan. Um, and I do believe that that played a role in my later diagnosis. I had some major gut issues going on. I had leaky gut. And then I was after that, I was diagnosed with MCAS. So that is something I'm still dealing with right now, which is mast cell activation syndrome. And I think a lot of people are dealing with that right now because of a lot of things that are happening in our environment and our food. Um, but those are two things that I later was diagnosed with, as well as some other like mental health things like OCD and, you know, fun stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, what have your symptoms been with those, with the mast cell and the leaky gut?
Mm. So leaky gut was mostly about, I'd say, 7 years ago that it started, that I no longer have anymore, but
Okay.
it was a rotation between I was either extremely constipated or the opposite. I'd be running to the bathroom. Um, and I never knew what I'd wake up to. I was always bloated. I'd have massive cramping. Um, I'd start breaking out, rashes, like that sort of thing. So I took some tests. Like I had stool samples taken, and I did some hormonal testing and hair analysis. And my HTMA test, which is your hair analysis for heavy metals, it came back amazing. Like it was clear. So I was like, okay, well, heavy metals are not my problem. But my stool sample was like, check, 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 like everything. I was like, oh, fun, okay.
Found it.
Mhm. So I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. And it took me a really long time to admit that it was my diet that was the problem. Um, because I was like, it can't possibly be the food that I'm eating. I eat clean. I eat all this amazing organic produce. I do all the right things. But it was unfortunately my diet that had led me to that diagnosis specifically. And that's when I changed and stopped being plant based and went to omnivore, which made me feel a whole lot better right away. Um, and then I'd say it was probably 2023. Yeah, 2023 when I got the mast cell diagnosis, which is the most complex and confusing diagnosis anyone can ever get, honestly, because there's so many factors and every single person reacts differently to every single thing and has completely different symptoms. So it's really challenging to work through for everyone on both ends, like as a practitioner and as the patient. So that has been a really interesting battle for me. And the symptoms with that are horrendous. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's the worst experience I've ever had, worse than cancer from a symptom perspective. Not diagnosis perspective, because cancer is like the worst. But yeah, symptom wise, if I'm in a really bad flare, I have a full on panic attack. And it is the worst experience. If you've ever had a panic attack, which I used to suffer from all the time as a child and in my early 20s, it was really bad at that point. I actually went on medication for it way back then. It's the worst feeling in the world. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. Um, so that's the worst part. or you'll get flushing, you'll get dizzy, your heart rate skyrockets, you get really hot, like you have a hard time regulating your temperature, you can get really upset stomach, like it's all the symptoms all the time. It just, you never know how you're going to react to something or what's going to set you off. Like perfumes and scented things are horrible for me. I get an instant headache. I get really dizzy. I can't really withstand like extreme temperatures, either way, cold or hot. Um, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I feel for everyone who's experiencing that right now, it's horrible.
Yeah. So, how did you manage that, or how have you been managing it?
Well, one of the first things I tried after reintroducing animal products, I'd say probably 6 months later, I went carnivore. And that was a game changer for me. Wild, wild experience from going from vegan to carnivore.
I bet.
It was like a serious mind fuck at times where I'm like, I don't know what the hell is wrong with me, but I'm gonna try because you can't know things for yourself or have an opinion on something without going through and trying it yourself, right? So I was like, I can't just dismiss this idea because what if it's magic? Right? So it's like, it's worth a shot. What have I got to lose? So I went carnivore, and that was an incredible experience. It really it really was shocking. I felt so good. It healed a lot of my gut issues because histamine, a lot of it is a gut issue. I'd say like the majority of it is gut related. So having all the butter, I didn't do dairy. I did like meat and butter and eggs basically. That's what I lived off of, and it was fantastic. I felt so good. Um, so that was one of the first things I did to help manage the symptoms. It's definitely a very tightly related situation to blood sugar regulation for me specifically. I think most people with MCAS would agree that, if I don't have protein first before carbs, I'll crash. I'll get a flare. Like it sets me off. So we don't want that roller coaster happening with anybody, but especially with people who have massive histamine issues, it'll really set you off. Um, so that's one of the things I really closely monitor for myself is ensuring that my blood sugar is regulated all day long. And then there's a ton of herbs and supplements that help with those symptoms specifically and that diagnosis. And it takes a while to work through that and to like heal your gut and heal all of your reactions. And because also your body then starts to get used to that, like you're exposed to it once. And then the next time you're exposed to it, it's like, oh, I know what's going to happen now. And then you react, right? So it's a systemic issue. But one of the things that works really, really well for me is my favorite herb, nettle. Um, it's a natural antihistamine, and histamines are also very closely tied to estrogen and estrogen dominance. And when you skyrocket in estrogen, it triggers your histamines, and then your histamines trigger your estrogen, and then it's just like this vicious cycle. So I found that my symptoms would usually flare even more during my luteal phase. Um, so I've started supporting myself differently during my different points in my cycle as well. So for women, it's extra challenging because we have so many hormonal fluctuations every single month, all week, every day. Like it's just chaos for a lot of women until you understand what that regulation actually means in your own body. So it's been a very long journey of understanding my body and my reactions and my symptoms because, again, everyone's is so different. So what works for me might not work for someone else because their body's completely different than mine. And it comes down to a lot of gene mutations as well. So there's just so much to it. It's a lot.
Yeah, and that's why we need like individualized care. That's
Hmm.
why we need
Exactly.
a different system.
It's so true.
So in Canada, is the food system the same as here? Is it just messed up and full of crazy shit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same. I think the the states might have some different flavors of different products. Like I think you guys have more of everything than we do, but it's the same things, like we still have Oreos that you have Oreos and we've got all the same garbage food. Um and we have produce that you have to look for yourself, but I'd say the hardest thing here in Canada is meat, um, and like dairy products and like any sort of animal product is a lot harder to find here, at least in Canada, or at least in Ontario, where I'm at. We don't have the different types of ground chicken and turkey like you guys do. That's like lean, extra lean, like you guys even have like numbers and percentages of like fat content. We don't have that here for most meat. Um, it's really, really challenging to find grass-fed anything. Unless maybe you live in the city where they have everything available to you. I don't really know what it's like in the city. But speaking from a country perspective, if you don't have a local farmer that you trust, you're going to have a hard time finding good quality animal products. And raw milk here is illegal, so we can't get that. Yeah.
I think that's so funny. It's not legal in my state either. I'm like, I have to go to the border to get some raw milk.
That's ridiculous.
So crazy. That always gets
Hmm.
me. Like, oh, you can go get like cigarettes and all these things that are basically going to kill
Hmm.
you, but some milk with like the actual nutrients instead of stripping it with everything it has.
Right? Yeah,
So
that's what
crazy.
always gets me too, is the whole alcohol and cigarette industry and how that was kept alive and well all these years, even though literally proven to cause cancer and death amongst everyone. It's literally poison,
Yeah,
and that's okay. But heaven forbid you milk a cow and drink it. Like that's crazy.
that's scary.
Yeah.
You're being scary now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. The craziest part too, though, is that here in Canada, raw milk is illegal, but you can still buy cheeses that contain raw milk. Can you make that make sense? Because I can't.
No. It all makes sense. Make it sense why the tobacco industry was allowed to buy all these food companies and then make our food, which also is causing cancer and all
Hmm.
these issues. Make that make sense.
It just doesn't, unless you follow the money. That's the only time it makes sense. If you look at it from the perspective of greed, then it makes all the sense.
It does. It really
Hmm.
does. In everything, in our food,
Hmm.
in our medicine, and yeah, that took over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What else is in Canada that isn't in the US? What else is going on there? Oh, I wanted to talk about, if you're comfortable,
Hmm.
MAID, the MAID that's going on there. I don't know
Yeah,
if my listeners know a lot about that, but I didn't know before you told me how bad it
yeah.
was.
It's a pretty big thing going on here right now. So, MAID, for those who are unaware, is assisted suicide. And it's a topic that is obviously very controversial and super touchy. I personally know, unfortunately, a very large amount of people who have chosen MAID because of cancer diagnoses. So for me, it's really devastating because instead of being actually supported and helped through treatment protocols that would actually cause remission in these people, they chose to die. And that was supported. You know, we're not going to support you to choose a different route than what we're offering you, but we will help kill you. And it's devastating to live through and to watch. And the actual process of MAID is disgusting. And I don't think people who choose that route understand what they're signing themselves up for, and the pain that's involved in actually being assisted into suicide. So it's pretty bad right now. There's a lot of stories coming out of the elderly who go in because they broke a hip and they're offered MAID, or they had a heart attack and they're saying, oh, it's going to take a really long road for you to recover. Do you want MAID? And it's a lot with elderly patients. There's been a lot of stories as well with younger individuals who are in mental health crises and they ask for MAID and they're given MAID, and a lot of their parents are speaking up saying like, you killed my 29-year-old son, for example, because he was depressed instead of helping him, and now he's gone. And it's gotten completely out of hand in our country, unfortunately. And I'm not about to say that assisted suicide is bad in all cases or that we don't need it. I don't think suicide should be illegal by any means, you know, but the implementation of it and the rules around it now have really grayed, and it's scary. It's scary to think that you could walk into a hospital and say, hey, I don't want to live anymore. And they're like, okay. And they'll kill you the next day. Like, for example, I have a good friend whose mother had been going through cancer for a long time. She was supposed to go into palliative care. But again, we live in a small town, there's not a lot of space. The hospice center was full and she was on the wait list for months and months, and she was in the hospital for those months, and every time her name came up someone else took the spot because they needed it more. And eventually she got to the point where she said she didn't want to live anymore because she was in so much pain and she wasn't receiving the care that she would in one of these homes in the hospital. So she chose MAID and they took her life the next day. And she had been waiting for over 9 months to get into palliative care. But as soon as she said, hey, I'm done, they're like, okay, we'll step right in, no problem. We can do that for you tomorrow. So it's disgusting, in all honesty. It's disturbing, and I hope that something will change in the near future, but the way that our country's going right now, I don't think that it will.
Uh, God, that's awful. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when they were talking about MAID in the US, and I know a couple states like offer it for really, really ill people who, like cancer patients, terminal illness, but nothing like that. And the thing is, once you start saying it's okay for that, this does happen where
Exactly.
young people can just ask to be killed and it's normal, and that's devastating because I went through mental uh, issues myself. I had very bad mental health issues, and to think that I could have just said take my life, I probably would have, but not known that there's way, like, things get better and there's actually, I think most of my mental health problems were nutrient deficiencies. I think I was
Exactly.
legit nutrient deficient, and that's really sad. That's so
It
sad.
is. It is really, really devastating because, like you said, a lot of those mental health issues are nutritionally based. And unfortunately, that is a massive controversial topic also, because I've been there myself. I've experienced it. I have wanted to take my life before as well. I know what that feels like. It is horrendous. I know what it feels like to live day in and day out in panic mode where you can't leave your house because you're afraid you're going to have a panic attack, so you're stuck inside your house. I know you don't want to live that way. I know what that feels like. So when I say things like it's a deficiency, I don't say it lightly. I'm not saying it as like, oh, you're just nutrient deficient. Get over it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I know how horrible those feelings are. I know what mental health is, and it matters way more than the medical system allows us to understand. And your nutritional status is one of the most important things that we should be focusing on as a whole, always, forever, until you die, when you hopefully live a long and happy life because you're stable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. But even the
Hmm.
mental health care that we have in general, like without MAID, is disturbing to me. Putting these people who are depressed and manic and etc. in a facility that doesn't see the sun, that feeds them just, turkey sandwiches on this nasty processed white bread. It goes back
Hmm.
to the nutrient deficiency. It's like nothing that we're doing is helping. Nothing.
No,
It's almost making it worse, and it's really scary.
absolutely. It is. It's terrifying because when you think about the hospital as an environment, it is the least healing environment you could possibly place yourself into, right? There's artificial lighting, there's no fresh air, there's no sleep when you're in there unless you're induced into sleep with medication. There's beeping, there's noise, there's crisis, there's trauma, there's horrible energy all around you, and you're expected to heal in this environment where they on top of it all give you garbage food, and somehow you're supposed to get better there. It literally doesn't make any sense. And when you look at historically where hospitals came from, where they would put patients outside for fresh air time, they would have, cotton and linen sheets for you to energetically absorb that healing frequency from it. They would give you fresh food. They would give you the proper sleep that you require for resting to heal. And now we've lost all of that. All of it. Literally everything that everyone is even taught to know to heal when you're sick at home. What do you do when you're sick at home? You rest, you eat well, you get lots of fluids, and then you lose all of that when you go to the hospital where you're supposed to be where you're the most sick. It doesn't make sense, you know? Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Me too. I just remember getting patients that came in, you know, suicidal ideation or any kind of mental health disorder. We take their rights. We take all your clothes. We take your phone. We take everything. And we say, you don't get anything. You're basically in jail, you know. And
Yeah.
then we hold them there. And some of the hospitals I was at, we don't have psychiatric care. We hold them
Hmm.
until a facility can take them. So these people are in a dark room, white walls, bright fluorescent lights. It's so horrible to watch every day. Just them getting worse and more agitated,
Yeah,
or, and then we have to medicate them, and then they're just sedated. And what are we
exactly.
doing for people?
Nothing. Nothing, especially in the mental health scope, because that, like you said, who in their right mind would honestly believe that they are safer locked up in this jail cell, basically, from a mental health perspective, than anywhere else? Why is that a better choice? Because you're being monitored and you're being given sedative medications to ensure that you don't harm yourself or others. Sure, I agree with that. You should be monitored, you should be supported, whatever you need in that moment in a crisis. Absolutely. But does that give you the right to lock them up in a cell where they're alone and they have no sunlight, they have no fresh air, they don't have good food. Like, is that better? What's the alternative here? Why is that the only place they can go when someone is having a mental health crisis? Like, if I were in a mental health crisis, I would never turn to the hospital because that's the last place I want to end up in a crisis, in a mental health crisis, of course. If I were in a car accident, totally different scenario. They
Exactly.
have life-saving medicine. I will never deny that or take that from them. The medical system has its place always for certain situations. But mental health is not one of them, unfortunately.
Yeah. I always think of like Japan and all these countries that you might go to the hospital for a mental health crisis, and what they'll prescribe you is nature and bathing in nature and all these beautiful pools in nature and hot springs. And that's how you
Mm-hmm.
heal your mental health crisis. You go back to what humans are. We're part of nature. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so sad how far we've gotten and how many people don't know. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling people to not go to the hospital if
Of
you're having
course.
a crisis, but I wish we had more resources, honest resources of how to help yourself in a mental health
Mm-hmm.
crisis and
Exactly.
not end up in a jail cell.
Yeah, exactly. Like if there was at least a space dedicated to that specifically where you could get monitored and you could get medication if you need it, but you're not jailed up and all your rights removed and you have zero accessibility to anything natural. You know, I know that that's for some reason at this point feels like that's asking for a lot from our system,
It
but
is.
it should be a bare minimum. They're in Canada, they're spending billions of dollars to make some stupid train that goes from Toronto to Quebec that nobody cares about. Meanwhile, people are dying from assisted suicide because we don't have an actual mental health crisis space for people to go to. But this train is more important. It's just the choices that they make for us as their citizens is disturbing to me, in all honesty.
Same here in the US. It's just gotten to the point where it's just a small group of billionaires who think they're doing the right thing for us. And it's like
They're doing the
really
right thing for
making,
themselves.
yeah, yeah, buying our
Yeah,
farmland and not farming on our farmland and making fake meat and calling that fake meat healthy.
yeah, exactly.
40 ingredients. It's insane.
Yeah, yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah.
But it is nice to know that there are alternatives. There are other things you can
Hmm.
do for your health, whatever you're going through. Like, it's amazing that you questioned everything. Like, it took me a while to start questioning things, and I was in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's amazing
It's
that you're
hard.
like, I just know that this isn't the right thing for me.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think I give myself enough credit for having done that, especially at that age, because I don't tend to be someone who lives in the past, which is probably why I have panic attacks because I'm like, oh my God, the
In the
future.
future.
But but it is a really big, difficult situation and scenario to be in. And I can completely empathize with everybody who's been there or who is there. But I would love for everyone to know that there is no rush. They make you feel like once you're diagnosed, if you don't go through with what they're telling you to go through with tomorrow, you're gonna die the next day. Like that's how they make you feel. Like if you don't do this now, you're gonna die. But then you ask them questions and they don't have answers. And even on probability, like the fact that well, you're considered cured if you fit into this box and you stay in this box for 5 years, right? But then after that, when you get cancer again, because the chemo wasn't actually what killed the cancer, because it doesn't actually do that
It just kills
at
it
the root
completely.
cause, the next time you get cancer, your survival rate is basically demolished because your immune cells are destroyed. You have nothing left to fight with anymore. And that doesn't matter in their statistics because you already lived in the 5 years that they have for their cure rates, right? So once you start digging deeper into even the conventional side and what those statistics actually mean and how they're measured, everything changes also,
Wow.
you know, because it's something that you should be informed of, but they don't inform you, so do it yourself. The least you can do is push pause and say, okay, like I know I was just diagnosed with cancer or whatever you were just diagnosed with. This didn't happen overnight. Cancer doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Every single day we have cancer cells in our body. That's a form of living. That's just part of being human. But your immune system is able to destroy them when your immune system is healthy. So it didn't happen overnight. It took probably decades for that tumor to form or for that cancer to form, unless we're talking about turbo cancer from certain specific shots that we don't need to get into on this episode. That's different too. But even then, you have time to choose and to study what you're actually faced with. Because even if you choose the conventional route, which go right ahead, I'm not saying don't do that. If that is your choice, that is your right. At least understand what you're actually signing yourself up for. Dive into that. What are they going to inject you with? You should probably know. What are the outcomes? You should probably know. And what does that outcome actually mean when you step outside of the box of that outcome? Long term, where are you going to end up 10 years from now? What does that mean for you? You know, go wider, make your scope bigger, do the real research so you can really make an informed decision, because the medical system is not designed on informed decision making skills at all. They rush you, they fear you, they scare you into choices, and a lot of times you end up regretting them.
Yeah. I mean, they were like 6 months into my diagnosis, they were like, we have to do surgery on you, brain surgery, or you're never going to live a normal life. And here I am without brain surgery. But
That's wild.
it's so true. Everything that you said. If you are getting a diagnosis and you're being pushed to do something that you don't feel is right and feels rushed, and they make you, they literally told me, you will probably die or you will not live a normal life if you don't have the surgery and take our medications for the rest of your life. And you just have to listen to that intuition of, this isn't what I want for my life. This isn't how I want to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's that intuition, I think, that gets a lot of people because they're not sure if they're making the right choice. And you get that pressure from doctors who have been put on this massive pedestal of the be all end all know all, and they're telling you you're wrong, and then you second guess your intuition. But I think you have to face all the fears, because just because the doctor's telling you you're wrong, what if he's wrong? You know, look at all the cancer patients who die. They say it's from cancer, but the majority of the time it's the treatment that kills them. And if you want to become one of those statistics, that's fine too. Like, make that your choice, though. Don't make it someone else's choice for you. This is your life and your body. You will end up being a statistic to whatever choice you make. So make it yours at least.
Oh, ooh, you gave me goosebumps. I really appreciated our conversation today. I really enjoy your story, and you're just incredible. Like the fact that you
Thanks.
did all this, and yeah, I'm just really happy that you joined us. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Follow Dori on Instagram, Detoxing Dori. Is there anywhere else they can find you?
My Instagram page is automatically linked to my Facebook page. I just don't go on Facebook ever. I did recently start a TikTok page, but I think I'm going to get banned off that pretty quickly.
We all are.
My podcast will be launching soon, which Allie will be on. And yeah, well, I have my own website, detoxingdory.com, where you can find all my workshops and books. And if you want to work with me as your practitioner, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
perfect. Well, thank you again. It was so good to
Thank you
see you
so
again.
much. Yeah, it was great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. I'll see you next time.